Hello, it's Willie from the Ozarks, and we're ready for our March the 6th lesson in A Course in Miracles workbook for students. Reading from the original edition, lesson 65. My only function is the one God gave me. My only function is the one God gave me. The idea for today reaffirms your commitment to salvation. It also reminds you that you have no function other than this. Both of these thoughts are obviously necessary for a total commitment. Okay, if these two thoughts are necessary for a total commitment, what are the two thoughts? The idea today reaffirms your commitment to salvation. It also reminds you that you have no function other than this. Both of these thoughts are obviously necessary for a total commitment. Salvation cannot be only Salvation cannot be the only purpose you hold while you still cherish others. The full acceptance of salvation as your only function necessarily entails two phases: the recognition of salvation as your function and the relinquishment of all other goals you have invented. Okay, so those two things are entailed for a complete commitment. A commitment to salvation, and then a relinquishment of all other invented goals that are contrary to salvation. This is the only way in which you can take your rightful place among the saviors of the world. This is the only way in which you can say and mean, my only function is the one God gave me. This is the only way in which you can find peace of mind. Wow, he's associating our function as saviors with being the only way to find true peace of mind. Today and for a number of days to follow, set aside 10 to 15 minutes for a more sustained practice period in which you try to understand and accept what today's idea really means. It offers you escape from all your perceived difficulties. It places the key to the door of peace which you have closed upon yourself in your own hands. It gives you the answer to all the searching you have done since time began. Wow, we have the key in our hand here, huh? Try, if possible, to undertake the daily extended practice periods at approximately the same time each day. Try also to determine this time today in advance and then adhere to it as closely as possible. Now, I said yesterday, morning's a great time. Said something to that effect. And what I really meant to say is that let me just tell you about what I do. I like to get my day started and make sure I get the quiet time done as the most important part of my day, and it helps establish the whole day to where it falls into line, because you've already determined what you think's most important. I also would encourage you, even if you do that, to spend a little time in the evening before you go to bed too, have a little extended period. Whether it's 10 or 15 minutes is not what he's requiring at this point, but he is saying to take a little bit of time in the evening and then to remember it throughout the day. And he's going to give us some specifics on that in this lesson. So let's continue. So establish a time is what he's trying to say, and then try to stick to that time every day. The purpose of this is to arrange your day so that you have set apart the time for God as well as for all the trivial purposes and goals you will pursue. This is part of the long-range disciplinary training which your mind needs so that the Holy Spirit can use it consistently for the purpose he shares with you. So set your time and then adhere to it. For this longer practice period, begin by reviewing the idea for today. Then close your eyes, repeat the idea to yourself once again, and watch your mind carefully to catch whatever thoughts cross it. Simple enough. Read the lesson, close your eyes, say the lesson, and then sit and watch your thoughts for a little bit. For this longer period, at first make no attempt to concentrate only on thoughts related to the idea for today. Rather try to uncover each thought that arises which would interfere with it. Note each one as it comes to you with as little involvement or concern as possible, dismissing each one by telling yourself, this thought reflects a goal that is preventing me from accepting my only function. Wow, okay, so we're going to watch our thoughts, maybe say for the first half of it, 5 minutes maybe. Watch your thoughts, and every time a thought comes up that's contrary to the goal, tell yourself, this thought reflects a goal that is preventing me from accepting my function. And really what we want is a clear and open slate. So really about any thought that comes up would be suitable in this phase of the practice. At least that's how I understand it. After a while, in other words, don't judge determining whether or not this is an interfering thought or not. Just admit that you are wanting to have have your mind on this one idea. My only function is the one God gave me. And another thought's come into your mind. So say, hey, this thought's interfering with, this thought reflects a goal that is preventing me from accepting my only function. After a while, interfering thoughts will become harder to find. Try, however, to continue a minute or so longer, attempting to catch a few of the idle thoughts which escaped your attention before. But do not strain or make undue effort in doing this. Then tell yourself, on this clean slate, let my true function be written for me. Wow, okay. So now after the thoughts have kind of ceased, now you're going to say and if they don't cease, just keep saying the lesson. And that's how I do it anyway. But as they tend to slow down and stop, then you can say, on this clean slate, let my true function be written for me. And you might take most of your lesson, that 10 or 15 minutes, in just getting your mind to slow down and not have conflicting thoughts, or what's he call them? Thoughts that reflect a goal that's preventing you from accepting your only function. So you might spend most of your lesson doing just trying to let those thoughts dissipate. But when you think that things have kind of calmed down, and then you can say, on this clean slate, let my true function be written for me. You need not use these exact words, but try to get a sense of being willing to have your illusions of purpose be replaced by truth. Finally, repeat the idea for today once more and devote the rest of the practice period to trying to focus on its importance to you, the relief its acceptance will bring you by resolving your conflicts once and for all, and the extent to which you really want salvation, in spite of your own foolish ideas to the contrary. And you might find it fairly challenging to do all the things he's telling you to do in this 10 to 15 minutes, but do the best you can. So after you've got this clean slate where your mind is kind of paused, then he says, repeat the idea for today once more. My only function is the one God gave me. And then devote the rest of the practice period to try to focus on its importance to you, the relief its acceptance will bring you by resolving your conflicts once and for all, and the extent to which you really want salvation, in spite of your own foolish ideas to the contrary. In the shorter practice periods, which should be undertaken at least once an hour, use this form in applying today's idea. My only function is the one God gave me. I want no other, and I have no other. So we're going to say that at least once an hour. And I would really encourage you to write that on your card. My only function is the one God gave me. I want no other, and I have no other. And then pause for a minute if you can. If not, just say it and keep doing what you're doing. But bring that to your memory every hour. And when possible, stop and reflect on it, perhaps with your eyes closed if at all possible. And the last paragraph, sometimes close your eyes as you practice, and sometimes keep them open and look about you. It is what you see now that will be totally changed when you accept today's idea completely. So on those opportunities that you have to close your eyes, do so. On the chances that you don't have, well then let that be one of your opportunities to do the lesson with your eyes open. Look at the world and say, my only function is the one God gave me. I want no other, and I have no other. Okay? All right, so let's go on and take a look in our text reading now. We are continuing on in chapter 14, bringing illusions to truth. Section 4, perception without deceit. And we are ready for paragraph 30, but let's start with 29, and we'll pick up there. As you're turning there, let me tell you about what I've got here. Look, this is a Japanese sweet potato, and it's starting to sprout. And I thought, well, you know, maybe I'll just get it to make me some. I didn't hold it up hard, did I? Sorry about that. I'm hoping that it's going to go ahead and start growing in this. But you can see some roots coming on there on the bottom. I've had it in here for just a few days, and it was starting to sprout, so I figured it was rearing to go. It'll make slips, and then what we do is you cut those off, and we'll plant those. And you got plenty of time, because sweet potatoes are a very warm season plant, and they prefer the nice warm weather. So if you get your slips, they call them, or your vines started now inside, you can cut it up, and each leaf can be a new plant. And we'll talk about how we get those doing as we make this one work. A Japanese sweet potato, not to be confused with an Irish sweet potato, or you know what we've been talking about are your the tuberoses, Solanum tuberosa, I think. I can't remember the exact genus and species, but these are the genus Ipomoea, Ipomoea, I think. Ipomea is what that's how I've always said it, but I think it might be Ipomoea. It's either Ipomoea or Ipoea. Anyway, in the Japanese term is Satsumayomo. Satsumayomo. I'm not sure. S-A-T-S-U-M-A-I-M-O. Something to note about Japanese sweet potato, or all sweet potatoes, the Ipomeas or Ipomoea, whichever it is, they can be eaten raw. Where you know your regular potatoes, you'd want to cook those to get rid of a detrimental part that ends up breaking down when you cook it. You've ever eaten a potato that's not cooked, you'll know what I'm talking about. It not only is that nightshade family has some toxins in there unless it's cooked in the sweet potato, which is a nightshade. But something pretty nice about these is that they can be eaten raw, the sweet potatoes. And you know, I've juiced them. They'll juice up like a carrot. I don't tend to like to juice them because you waste an awful lot of pulp. But they do taste good juiced. If you want to make some sweet potato juice, you don't have to cook them, is what I'm trying to say. Just put them in your juicer and juice them. As far as just like you would a carrot. Real good for you too. Have a lot of antioxidants in sweet potatoes and a lot of different vitamins. The sweet potato and the sweet potato vine are all edible and highly nutrient rich. What else do I want to tell you about a sweet potato? These Japanese sweet potatoes have a white flesh that turns yellow after they're cooked, but the outside is kind of a purplish pink color. All right, let's take a look in our reading. Paragraph 29. Defenses, like everything you made, must be gently turned to your own good, translated by the Holy Spirit from means of self-destruction to means of preservation and release. His task is mighty, but the power of God is with him. Therefore, to him it is so easy that it was accomplished the instant it was given him for you. Do not delay yourselves in your return to peace, by wondering how he can fulfill what God has given him to do. Leave that to him who knows. You are not asked to do mighty tasks yourself. You're merely asked to do the little he suggests you do, trusting him only to the small extent of believing that if he asks it, you can do it. You will see how easily all that he asks can be accomplished. And since you may not be alert to hearing the voice, an actual, literal voice, you can watch your peace like we talked about yesterday, and you'll know exactly what you need to do. So if you don't, sit down and be still and quiet until you do. That's my encouragement. And if you can't sit down and be still and quiet, well then you can at least be quiet. All right. You will see how easily all that he asks can be accomplished when you learn just to listen to his voice and don't worry about how it's all going to fit together. Just listen to God's voice inside and side with the voice of peace, the voice of truth, the voice of love, actually. I told a friend of mine yesterday that you don't want to really use the word love as your guide, even though we do want to follow love. But love can mean so many different things to so many different people. But it's hardly any argument that you can learn to follow peace. You know what peace feels like within yourself. And that's what you want to always be attuned to. And wherever peace is, love is. And so is truth. And so is joy. They all go together. All right, paragraph 30. The Holy Spirit asks of you but this: bring to him every secret you have locked away from him. Open every door to him and bid him enter the darkness and lighten it up, or lighten it away. At your request, he enters gladly. He brings the light to darkness if you make the darkness open to him. But what you hide he cannot look upon, for he sees for you, and unless you look with him, he cannot see. The vision of Christ is not for him alone, but for him with you. Bring therefore all your dark and secret thoughts to him, and look upon them with him. He holds the light, and you the dark. He holds the light, and you the darkness. They cannot coexist when both of you together look on them. His judgment must prevail, and he will give it to you as you join your perception to his. Joining with him in seeing is the way in which you learn to share with him the interpretation of perception that leads to knowledge. Joining with him in seeing is the way in which you learn to share with him the interpretation of perception that leads to knowledge. Wow, so we want to listen to the Holy Spirit's guidance. The voice for peace is how I like to think of the Holy Spirit. And he's going to let you re-perceive everything in a way that's going to lead to knowledge. You cannot see alone, paragraph 31. You cannot see alone. Sharing perception with him whom God has given you teaches you how to recognize what you see. It is the recognition that nothing you see means anything alone. Seeing with him will show you that all meaning, including yours, comes not from double vision, but from the gentle fusing of everything into one meaning, one emotion, one purpose. God has one purpose which he shares with you. The single vision which the Holy Spirit offers you will bring this oneness to your mind with clarity and brightness so intense you could not wish for all the world not to accept what God would have you have. Let's read that sentence again. The single vision which the Holy Spirit offers you will bring this oneness to your mind with clarity and brightness so intense you could not wish for all the world not to accept what God would have you have. Behold your will, accepting it as His, with all His love as yours. All honor to you through Him, and through Him unto God. 32. In the darkness you have obscured the glory God gave you and the power He bestowed upon His guiltless Son. All this lies hidden in every darkened place, shrouded in guilt and in the dark denial of innocence. Behind the dark doors which you have closed lies nothing, because nothing can obscure the gift of God. It is the closing of the door that interferes with recognition of the power of God that shines in you. Banish not power from your mind, but let all that would hide your glory be brought to the judgment of the Holy Spirit, and there undone. Wow. Whom He would save for glory is saved for it. He has promised the Father that through Him you would be released from littleness to glory. To what He promised God, He is wholly faithful. To what He promised God, He is wholly faithful. For He shared with God the promise that was given Him to share with you. He shares it still for you. Everything that promises otherwise, great or small, however much or little valued, He will replace with the one promise given unto Him to lay upon the altar to your Father and His Son. Everything that promises otherwise, great or small. So He shares it still with you, and everything that promises otherwise, great or small, however much or little valued, He will replace with the one promise given unto Him to lay upon the altar to your Father and His Son. No altar stands to God without His Son, and nothing brought there that is not equally worthy of both, but will be replaced by gifts wholly acceptable to Father and Son. Can you offer guilt to God? You cannot. Then offer it to His Son. Can you offer guilt to God? You cannot. Then offer it to His Son. For they are not apart, and gifts to one are offered to the other. Okay, well there you go. So what you give to your brother, you give unto God, and you certainly don't want to think of your brother as guilty, because that'd be thinking that God's guilty. And so he says that, that's a door that there's nothing beyond it. That door of guilt, there's nothing in that. There's nothing in that room. It's nothing there. It's just a door. Opens to nothing. All right, my only function is the one God gave me. I want no other, and I have no other. So be sure to do your hourly remembrance of that today, and be sure to take your longer 10 or 15 minutes or longer practice period at least once today. All right, until tomorrow, my only function is the one God gave me. I want no other, and I have no other.